Chapter 4 Missing. When Mandy and James got back to Lilac Cottage, Grandma was busy sorting out things for the rummage sale. She had filled 2 black plastic bags full of old clothes and books. Mandy helped her carry them upstairs. About time we got rid of some of this junk, Grandma muttered. Your grandpa will insist on hoarding things, Mandy. Mandy giggled. Grandpa never threw anything away, if he could help it. I'm afraid they'll have to go in your room for now, Mandy. There's not really anywhere else to put them. Grandma dumped the bags by the closet door. Someone will come by on Friday to pick them up. Mandy peered hopefully into Frisky's cage, but he was still asleep. The cage was very neat. Mandy tried not to be disappointed. She would just have to be patient. There would be plenty of time to play with Frisky that evening. And when she and James went upstairs after dinner, there was Frisky, sitting at the bottom of his ladder, nibbling on a piece of apple. Mandy drew in her breath. Isn't he wonderful? She put her finger through the bars and wiggled it. Frisky finished his apple and ran over to his food bowl. Soon he was gobbling up his hamster mix. Most of it went into his cheek pouches. He looks as if he's got mumps again, James laughed. He had heard all about Grandma's mistake. Why don't we take him down to show your Grandma and Grandpa? Grandma was getting ready to go out. There was a meeting of the rummage sale committee, and Grandma was chairman. She peered into the cage. Oh, yes. She still didn't sound too sure. He is very sweet. Mandy put the cage on the coffee table in the living room where Grandpa was watching his favorite gardening program. Frisky had finished his meal and was running in and out of the cardboard tube. Grandpa looked into the cage. What a cute little fellow, he said. Should we let him out to have a run around the room? Mandy's eyes lit up. It was just what she and James had been waiting for. Oh, Grandpa, can we? She said. Grandpa cocked his head to one side. I think we better wait until your grandma's gone, though, don't you? She might not like him running around the living room. Grandma poked her head in the door. I'm leaving now, Tom, she said. Okay. Grandpa waved his hand. See you later. They waited until they heard the door bang shut. Okay, Grandpa said. Coast clear. Let's make sure there are no holes for him to disappear down first. James and Mandy searched the room thoroughly. No holes, they said. And all the windows are shut, Mandy added. I'll put the guard around the fireplace. Grandpa got up and put the big brass screen in front of the fire. There, that should be okay. Mandy was so excited. Her heart was beating like a drum as she opened the cage door. She put her hand slowly inside. She picked the hamster up gently and lifted him out. Frisky sat on the palm of her hand looking at her. I think he likes me, Mandy said. Smart little one, Grandpa chuckled. Suddenly, Frisky turned and ran up Mandy's arm. He sat on her shoulder, then disappeared inside the collar of her sweatshirt. She sat perfectly still. She could still feel Frisky running down her back and around her waist. It tickled so much. It was all she could do to stop herself from wiggling. Then, suddenly, he appeared on her lap. Could I hold him? James had been watching. Of course you can. Mandy picked Frisky up and passed him to James. He stroked the hamster and then put him on his knee. Frisky suddenly ran around James's waist and disappeared. James sat as still as a stone. Where did he go? He hardly dared breathe. I don't know, Mandy said. Then a lump appeared in the pocket of James's sweatshirt. Grandpa roared with laughter. He's in your pocket, he said. The clever little fellow. Suddenly, Frisky's nose appeared, and he scampered out of James's pocket, down the side of the chair, and onto the floor. He ran around, then disappeared under the sideboard. Mandy lay flat on the floor. She could see Frisky sitting on his hind legs. He was gazing back at her with bright, beady eyes. Suddenly, the door opened, and Grandma came in. I forgot my notebook, she said, heading for her study. Grandma, Mandy gasped. Shut the... But it was too late. Frisky had spotted the opening. He dropped down on all fours and scurried out of the room as fast as he could. "Oh, no!" Mandy wailed. "He's escaped!" She dashed into the hall. Grandpa looked around. "Who has?" "Frisky," James said. He ran out after Mandy. Grandpa sat in his chair, chuckling. "He won't go far, Mandy," he called. "Don't worry." Then suddenly he looked serious. "I hope you shut the back door, Dorothy." "Yes, I did," she said. "Thank goodness for that," Grandpa said. By now Frisky had completely disappeared. Mandy and James ran all over looking for him. "Do you think he could have gotten up the stairs?" James asked. Mandy shook her head. She felt close to tears. "I don't know," she wailed. Grandma came back, out with her notebook. She was walking very carefully, afraid she might step on the runaway hamster. "You'll have to find him, Mandy." Grandma looked serious. "Mary won't be very pleased if she comes back from vacation and he's missing." "I know, Grandma. I'm really sorry," Mandy said, close to tears. Grandma put her arms around her. "It was my fault for opening the door." Mandy shook her head. "No, it wasn't. I shouldn't have let him out. I just wanted to hold him." A tear ran down her cheek. Grandma gave her a quick hug. "Don't worry, Mandy. He's got to be in the house somewhere. If he's still missing, I'll help look when I get back." She slipped out the back door, shutting it quickly behind her. Mandy and James searched for Frisky until it was time for James to go home. Mandy's face was sad as she said goodbye to him at the front door. "I just don't know what we're going to do," she said. She couldn't bear to think of the little creature lost somewhere. "You could make a trap," James suggested. Mandy looked at him in horror. "What? Like a mouse trap?" "No, silly," James said. "A bottle." Mandy looked puzzled. "What do you mean?" "Well," James said, "you get a tall glass jar and put some food and bedding in it." "Then what?" Mandy asked. "Then you leave it sideways on the floor. When the hamster goes in to get the food, he won't be able to climb out through the neck because it's too slippery." Mandy's face brightened. "How do you know all this?" "I read it in a book," James said. He zipped up his coat. "It's supposed to work every time." "James, you're so smart," Mandy cried. "I know," James laughed as he let himself out through the front door. Mandy closed the door behind him and sighed. She hoped James was right about the hamster trap. If not, she didn't know what they were going to do. "Any sign of the little fellow?" Grandpa asked when Mandy got back into the front room. She shook her head. "No." She went on to tell Grandpa about James's idea. "Sounds good." Grandpa turned off the television. "One of those tall jars Grandma uses for bottling fruit would be ideal. There's a whole shelf of them in the pantry." While Grandpa got one down, Mandy went upstairs and got some hamster mix and bedding. She took a piece of carrot and a piece of apple. If they didn't tempt Frisky, then nothing would. "We'll put it in the living room," Grandpa said. "Let's hope he finds it." That night, Mandy lay awake. She kept imagining all sorts of things that might have happened to Frisky. What if he were stuck somewhere? Maybe he was hiding in a closet? She had looked for him again before she went to bed, but there was no trace of the hamster anywhere. In the middle of the night, Mandy awoke from a restless sleep. The moon was shining brightly through the gap in her curtains. Mandy got out of bed and crept downstairs. It was no good trying to sleep. She had to see if Frisky was in the jar. Mandy tiptoed into the living room. Grandma had drawn back the curtains, and the room was bright with moonlight. The jar lay just where Mandy had left it. She let out a sigh of disappointment. The jar was empty.